Welcome back to the Jon Krawczynski Show. Man, do we have a lot to get to. The trade deadline, the Timberwolves non-moves, the Timberwolves beating the Houston Rockets at home in a very entertaining game. Possible ownership news on the horizon, although as we're recording this on Friday morning, that has not happened yet. When it does happen, we'll get another show out to address that all by itself. This is going to be a basketball show because there's a lot of basketball to talk about. He's Jon Krawczynski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studios.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services, your independent authorized Connecticut dealer, bringing some love to your water. Isn't it time for softer skin and laundry, sparkling dishes, and water so good you'll want to hug your faucet? Connecticut is easy on salt, uses zero electricity, and delivers worry-free water you'll love. Schedule your free water analysis today at AquariusHomeservices.com and save up to 25% on a Connecticut whole home system. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
We are presented to you by Giggly THC beverages. Keep the good times rolling without the regrets. Giggly THC beverages are your go-to for bold flavor and smooth vibes. Zero alcohol, no bad decisions, just THC-infused cocktails, seltzers, and teas packed with natural ingredients and performance and boosting superfoods like ashwagandha and ginseng. Find Giggly at more than 500 locations like Total Wine, MGM, and Cub Foods, or shop online at Giggly.com. Ready to upgrade your drink game? Use the code GIGLYNORTH, G-I-G-L-I North, for 50% off your first order. Giggly, sip smarter, feel better. We'll thank all of our other sponsors here as the show rolls on. For right now, John, quite a week in the NBA. Maybe the most impactful midseason trade ever. The Wolves stand pat. I think 27 different teams made some kind of a move. How do you feel the landscape of the league changed in the last week?
Yeah, I mean, it took a huge sweeping change, if that's the right way to put it. I mean, when you look at the Lakers adding Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis going to the Mavericks, the Spurs getting De'Aaron Fox, the Cavaliers getting DeAndre Hunter, like there's so many seismic moves. Jimmy Butler going to Golden State, of course. Like, it's just one after another in just a dizzying array of moves. And a lot of them, unfortunately for the Wolves, happened in the Western Conference. And I think with teams sort of right above them and right around them improving. And so, this does have the potential to really affect the Timberwolves and where they stand, just as they are starting to put things together themselves a little bit. So it's going to be a fascinating final 30-some games of the regular season as these stars move around and get settled in their new homes, and as the Timberwolves try to see if what they have been building really over the last month and a half now is going to be able to sustain now that they're facing teams that have loaded up a little bit.
We don't talk about individual games too much because we always want the show to have about a week of shelf life, but we got to talk about that Rockets game. That was highly entertaining, very physical, and I thought the Wolves responded really well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was easily the most entertaining game of the season, Jim. That the Rockets are a team that want to get under your skin, that want to push you and poke you and prod you, that fancy themselves as really tough, and they are tough. And I thought that the Timberwolves responded with force in a way that was really impressive. They're playing the second night of a back-to-back. They had not played well at home really for most of the season. But that one was just a statement type of an effort on a day where the trade deadline passed and they did not make any moves. For them to come out absent Julius Randle, absent Dante DiVincenzo, and get just an otherworldly performance from Anthony Edwards, and then get timely contributions from Jalen Clark and Rob Dillingham and Mike Conley and kind of all of the supporting cast, and really just go toe to toe, nose to nose with a team that wants to bully you. I thought it was thrilling. The crowd was on fire, going after Dylan Brooks. And it felt like a playoff game in there. And I think the Timberwolves would absolutely welcome a first round series against the Rockets if that was, on the table for them.
And that's the fascinating thing. Last year, the easy thing to obsess about was the number 1 or number 2 seed. The Wolves ended up not getting that, and they ended up still going to the Western Conference Finals this year. The 3 teams at the top are really good, but I'm not sure they instill all kinds of fear in opponents. And then teams 4 through 12 are all teams that could turn it on and be really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly OKC has been the clear class of the conference, and Chet Holmgren's coming back, and so they're loaded, but at the same time they have not done it. They're a young team, and so we have not seen them have real success in the playoffs yet. So that's going to be a big hurdle for them to climb. Then when you look at Memphis and Denver and Houston, LA, the Lakers, the Mavericks, all these teams are kind of bunched together. And so this thing is going to be wide open. I do think that, I think this week, Jim, and this homestand has sort of been indicative of the Timberwolves experience this season. I mean, you win 5 in a row and you're going into games against Washington and Sacramento without De'Aaron Fox, and you're thinking, okay, the train's going to keep rolling, like 7 wins in a row, here we come. And then they have a bunch of injuries and illness in the Washington game, and they lose that one, and then they lose the Sacramento game as well, and you're ready to tear your hair out. And then they come and they beat Chicago with 49 from Ant, and then they play one of their best games of the season with 41 from Ant in the game against the Rockets, and they're back to it. And now you look at a team where, if you zoom out, they've won 7 of their last 9. They're 12-6 over their last 18 games, Jim, and 5 of those 6 losses by 2 points or less. Like they're right on the razor's edge of being a team that's in the top 4 right now. And I just think that with what I see and what I've seen all season, I've just never been willing to give up totally on this team because of the talent and because of the way the conference is stacked up, where if they get the right matchup in the first round, they can win that series. If they get the right matchup in the second round, they can win that series. If they get the wrong matchup in a play-in, they could lose. Yep. So it's fascinating how this whole thing is played out.
No doubt about it. Let's get to Ant. 2 spectacular games, goes over 40 back-to-back nights, passes Cat for the most 40-point games in franchise history, becomes the youngest to make 1,000 3-pointers. There were times this year you could say, okay, is this guy really going to be the transformational star they need him to be? Lately, he has been.
He's been remarkable, Jim. And he does, watching him now for 5 seasons, there is a sense of timing with Ant in the middle of a season where he just seems to understand when the team needs him to take over. And I think that he came out of those 2 games, the Wizards and the Kings. He was still a little sick in the Kings game and just was not on his game. And they were massively disappointing losses. And there's a really difficult schedule coming up here. And so you just got the sense that he looked around and he knew that Julius Randle was hurt and not coming back for a couple of weeks. He knows Dante DiVincenzo isn't coming back yet for a while. And the team's reeling a bit. Chris Finch is just begging them to play better at home. And he said, all right, I've just got to take over. And that's what he's done. And, it's not just the most impressive thing about it is we have seen surges from Ant this season, but a lot of them have been predicated on the 3-ball just being outrageous. And really what has fueled these last 2 games has been getting to the basket and getting to the free throw line. He had 18 free throw attempts in the game against Chicago, 15 free throw attempts in the game against Houston. And that sort of attacking mentality just, I think, infuses the entire team with a sense of confidence and a sense of toughness. And that is what franchise players do, is when the chips are a little down, when the team needs a boost, they say, get on my back and I'm going to carry you. And that is exactly what Anthony Edwards has done the last 2 games. 90 points in 2 games. He used to not play well in the second night of back-to-backs. He seems to have gotten a routine down now where he's playing better that way. And I thought last night, we're recording this on Friday morning, on Thursday night, Dylan Brooks tried to be the tough guy, tried to get in his head, and Ant just stepped on his throat. And I thought that, that was something that the entire building felt and fed off of. And that's what your best players have to do.
The only negative of the Ants game right now is not getting back on defense. Is that a big deal? Is something we should concern ourselves with? How do you think Finch approaches that with it?
Yeah, I mean, it is a big deal. First of all, let's just say that, because we see it regularly where he goes to the basket and he doesn't get a foul call that he thinks he deserves. He's probably fell onto the floor under the basket, and he's slow to get up, and he's talking to the referees, and he's slow to get back. And last night it happened. Dylan Brooks hit a 3 wide open because Ant was slow getting back. That is definitely something that needs to be fixed and corrected. You give him a little bit of grace when he's carrying the offensive load that he is right now, and when he is attacking as much as he is, because it takes so much energy and effort to do that. And so I don't want to be like nitpicking, but I think it's bigger than a nit to pick. I will say that right now, unfortunately for the Timberwolves, with some of their injuries, just with where the roster is in general, they have a very, very small margin for error. And so when you have your star player, not getting back, not hustling, giving up open shots, that can be really damaging to your ability to win games. And so I just think that, as the season goes along, I think that the coaches will continue to point that out to him, continue to poke him, continue to prod him, and do that sort of thing. But at the same time, you look at it and say, gosh dang, this guy is absolutely lights out from an offensive standpoint. You got to pick your spots with when you go at him on that stuff, because he's just been so good the last couple of games.
So much more I want to get to, but first let's hear about Princeton's Liquors.
Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. We've been telling you about Bill Princeton and the Princeton family for a long time now on this show. We love community companies and community projects here on the Jon Krawczynski Show and at Talk North. And Princeton's Liquors is the essence of community driven. They have been in Maple Grove selling beer, wine, spirits for decades and decades, a part of this community, contributing to it forever and ever. Bill Princeton is a part of the basketball community here, an intern with the Timberwolves and Lynx. He's one of us, and the family is a part of Minnesota. And so go into Princeton's Liquors. You will find fantastic selection of bourbon, a fantastic selection of craft beer, kind of their two specialties, but they have whatever you need: wine, spirits, THC drinks and seltzers, anything like that. Princeton's Liquors does have you covered. Go in there, tell them the Jon Krawczynski Show sent you. Find some of the best selection of craft beer and bourbon you're going to find in Minnesota at Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove.
TSR Injury Law, one of our founding sponsors, been with us forever, and they've been doing well forever because they win cases. They win your case, they won't charge you. Well, they won't charge you unless they win your case, and they win a lot of cases. Just remember 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. Check out the commercials. The commercials are a blast. The Nasri commercials are great. But the important thing is they can really help you if you need that kind of help. You can trust them. They've been around forever. They've done a lot of people a lot of good. Just remember 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. Also want to let you know that want to thank one of our newer sponsors at TalkNorth.com across the platform, Royal Credit Union.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with a Royal Credit Union certificate. Whether you're saving for college, a vacation, wedding, or a down payment on a house, Royal's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate can help you reach your savings goals faster. Royal certificates have no minimum opening balance and a locked-in rate for a guaranteed return at maturity. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Let's segue to the bench here a little bit. Terrence Shannon Jr. finally gets healthy, hits a 3 the first time he touches the ball in an NBA game, has a monster dunk. Jalen Clark unleashes his 3-point game. He's been a great defender. And Luka Garza continues to kind of get, sniffs of time here and there. Joe Ingles even got a little time last week. What's the state of the bench right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of bench units, it is up and down. You're going to have nights where Jalen Clark is hitting 4 threes and where Rob Dillingham is giving you nice little boomlets like he did against the Rockets, and Shannon is throwing down dunks, and it looks really good. Then there are going to be nights when you go to young players where they're going to struggle. They're going to turn the ball over. They're going to miss shots. They're going to miss defensive assignments, and it's going to be a little bit harder. But I will say, in the broader sense, Jalen Clark's emergence really over the last 2 weeks or so has been a revelation. He was not playing at all. He wasn't in the rotation. He was playing a lot at Iowa. And when Dante DiVincenzo got hurt, and when Josh Minot really struggled, Chris Finch sort of like in case of emergency, he broke glass and went to Jalen Clark. And he has really given the Wolves a boost defensively. He is a top flight defender. They can put him on anyone, on the perimeter and feel like he's going to at least bother them. He got fourth quarter minutes against the Rockets in a tight game, which shows you sort of the confidence that is building in Chris Finch with Jalen Clark. And he has really wedged himself into this rotation, this 9-man rotation that Finch is getting to. It's a really important development because I think, Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been a little bit up and down lately. And they need another rugged perimeter defender. And if he can make shots like he has been, man, that just really does make him a legitimate option for them. And you talk to Jalen Clark and he has got such a good spirit about him, such a good perspective. He's coming back from the Achilles injury, and it's hard not to root for the kid because of all that he's been through and because of just, what a fun personality he is. So I think that his establishment in the rotation has been really fun to watch. And then, you can kind of build around that with Nickeil, with Naz Reid when he is on the bench and Julius Randle is back in there. And they have some weapons there now that they can deploy. Dillingham is still working to get Finch's trust, but I just think you got to keep going to him and keep putting him out there because he just brings something that most of the rest of the team cannot bring. And so it's going to be up and down. There's going to be highs and lows with it. But in general, I think that you feel like there are at least options available to Chris Finch to kind of go at games different ways depending on what he needs. And that's a really good thing for a coach to have.
One thing that jumps out at you is just how strongly built, how explosive Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr. are. I mean, they are built like football players.
100%. The Rockets game was just perfect for both of them. Like, they are not afraid to get in there and bump and throw some elbows and mix it up physically because both of them are a little bit older. I think Clark went to school at UCLA for 3 years, I believe. Mm-hmm. Shannon Jr. is 24. He was older than Ant when he was drafted. He still is older than Ant. And so do they have a lot to learn from the game? Yeah, they do. They're going to make mental errors. They're going to do things in the heat of the moment that sometimes are not exactly what you want. But from a physical standpoint, they are grown men. And, Rob Dillingham is still working on the physicality part of it and kind of figuring out how to use his quickness to combat his lack of strength right now with that slight frame. The slight frame is not an issue for Shannon Jr. and for Clark. They want all of the smoke and they can stand up to some of the biggest, toughest guys in the league. And that, I think, gives a really nice dimension to that bench unit as young guys, as bouncy guys, but as just, big, strong dudes that will get in there and will make you feel them for whether it's 5 minutes like Shannon was out there or whether it was 18 or 19 minutes like Jalen Clark was out there.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get to some injury news, the upcoming schedule, and again, let's go back to what happened around this league and how it affects the Wolves. Right now, though, we want to hear more about True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to True Vision, CHU Vision.com to set up a consultation to get your eyes checked and for vision correction. I went to True Vision last summer, and I had LASIK surgery, and it was a life-changing experience. And I know that people will roll their eyes when I say life-changing experience. I did the same thing when people would tell me about their LASIK, for the last 20 years. And I say, just cannot be that good. It really is that good. I've just been now had it since July. And now I'm starting to get people coming up to me and saying, I totally forgot that you used to wear glasses. That's how it's settled in here. And it's such an easier life. I don't have to worry about fumbling around with contacts and eyeglasses. I don't have to worry about setting up vision appointments once a year, once every 2 years to go in and get my eyes checked and get new prescriptions or spend a bunch of money on stylish new glasses to try and stay ahead of the trends, or, all the daily wear contacts, all of those things. That's all gone now, thanks to True Vision. I have LASIK surgery. I see great, both near and far. It has just opened up everything for me, and it made life so much easier. So go to truevision.com to set up your consultation. If you go in and you meet with the people there, you will find the friendliest and most accommodating and most knowledgeable staff you could ever ask for. And just get ahead and get going with it. I wish I would have done it 10 years ago. After you do it, you will be saying the same thing.
Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line. What's going on with them?
sglambchops.com is the place to go for the most stylish, most comfortable, highest quality casual wear that you can find. T-shirts, sweatshirts, pants, hats, hoodies, you name it, they have it. And if you go to sglambchops.com and put in the promo code JONK20, you'll get 20% off any a purchase at the website. And if you go to Timberwolves games, you will see Lamb Chops clothing all over the arena. They have a Timberwolves collab that you can pick up on various times during the season at the team store. But also there's just a bunch of people wearing Lamb Chops clothing because they know how invested Jordan and Craig and everyone at Lamb Chops is in the local community, in the Timberwolves and Lynx. And it's been really cool to see kind of the fans really back them as they've backed this team and this community. And so go to sglambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for 20% off all of your stuff at Lamb Chops. You will wear it at home watching the game. You'll wear it out for a night in the North Loop and feel really good and really comfortable. Everything that you could want is there at sglambchops.com.
I think Chris Hine asked Finch last night, what's a realistic goal for this team at this point? What do you think the realistic goal is for the rest of the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you asked me after last night and I say top 4.
Yeah.
They should be home court advantage team. But then you asked me after the Sacramento game and I'm like, just scratch and claw to try and get out of the play-in. But I do think just given everything around them, given the injuries that they're dealing with, given what other teams have done in trades, I think that they need to make top 6 their priority. Maybe the season started with a real goal of top 4. But just stay out of that play-in mess. If you're the 6th seed and you play, Houston or Denver in the first round, maybe you feel good about those matchups. So Memphis, you feel good and you say, let's go. Let's make it happen. I just don't think you want to risk being in the play-in and having to face Wembanyama and Fox, or, whether Dallas kind of scratches and claws their way back into it. If you have to face, Kyrie and Anthony Davis, or if you have to face Kawhi, or, there's just a lot of really scary propositions down there. Even Phoenix, who is not playing well, you face KD and Booker in a 1-game, situation. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with that. So I do think that the focus should be on 6. But if they can continue momentum and keep clawing, it's funny, Denver was really wallowing earlier in the season. They have since put things together. I think they've won 5 in a row now, and Houston is really kind of free falling and they've lost 5 in a row. And so now Denver is above the Rockets. That's how quickly things can change in the Western Conference and with how jam-packed everything is. And so I think that that's got to be the focus, top 6. And if you want to get greedy, go for it and try and get into that top 4. But realistically, a top 6 finish is the most ideal thing here.
You and I haven't done a show since the big trade, so what the hell?
Oh, man.
Luka for Anthony Davis mid-season. I mean, I don't know. What was your reaction then? And now that you've thought about it, what's your reaction now?
I mean, I was one of, many who it was after the Wizards game, and I was having a drink with some basketball people, and the Shams alert came on my phone, and I showed it to one. I'm like, look, Shams got hacked. Like his account got hacked. There's no way that this is the trade. There's no way that this is the deal. And then it quickly became clear that it was. And, you're just completely flabbergasted by it because, look, I think it's an enormous, just foundation-changing mistake to trade Luka Doncic at all. No question. Like you make it. They may never have another basketball player as good as Luka Doncic in the history of the Dallas Mavericks. That's how good he is. So you decide that you're going to trade him. That's error number one. But I will hear you on it. I will listen to you. I will give kind of some sort of grace and understanding. And if you say, hey, Luka, we're a little bit worried about how his body's going to age. He doesn't really take care of himself. We think he's kind of taken us as far as he can, and we're going to move him out of here. And so, okay, I'll listen to that. All right. That's the decision that you've made. But then to trade him only for Anthony Davis, great player, fantastic player, but he's 32 years old. He has a history of injuries. He's been better and been healthy the last couple of years, but he has that injury history, and he's a big, so you trade him for him, Max Christie, nice little piece, and 1 first-round draft pick. It is a failure of the organization by a magnitude I've never seen before, because the Lakers got Luka Doncic for AD, Max Christie, and a first-round pick, and then they went and traded for Mark Williams, a really good young center from Charlotte, for some pieces, for Dalton Connect, another pick, a couple of other pieces that went out to Charlotte. And I would tell you, Jim, that the Dallas Mavericks should have gotten everything that the Lakers traded for both Luka and Mark Williams in a Luka deal. Because if you are trading your superstar player to a conference rival, you need to make sure that you gut that entire franchise that he's going to, and you take as much as humanly possible so they cannot continue to supplement their roster, and so you have more ammo going forward. And instead, they took a deal that also left the Lakers with enough ammunition to go get a young, up-and-coming, a little injury-prone, but certainly incredibly talented 7'2" center to fill the one big need that they had left on their roster. It is unconscionable. It is the worst negotiation I've ever seen in this league and covering it for 25 years. And it blows my mind. I cannot believe it happened.
What was the driving force for the Mavericks? Because they were obviously desperate to make a deal, or they wouldn't have made that deal. Was it ownership not wanting to invest in a guy who wouldn't get in shape? Was it something with Jason Kidd? Was it something with Nico? I mean, or was it just a dumb mistake? I mean, but there had to be a motivation for this.
Yeah, it seems like, in reading the reporting about it by people who are really close on the scene there, it seems like Nico Harrison, the Mavericks GM, did not really have the best relationship with Luka Doncic. He's very tight with Kyrie Irving. He's very tight with Anthony Davis from his days at Nike. And so there was certainly a real relationship and respect for Anthony Davis, in the back of his head. What I've also heard, because remember the Mavericks just were sold by Mark Cuban, and I've heard that the new group is pretty hands off and lets their people in power make decisions and go forward. Still, there's no way a decision of this significance is made without ownership approval and consultation. I don't know that they drove the decision, but my guess is that it was brought to them as, hey, next year we're going to have to pay Luka Doncic a 5-year, $350 million maximum contract. And we don't think that he is worth that. We think that his lack of work ethic is going to contribute to more injuries later on in life. And so we have the potential to really regret this deal, after signing it. I would rebut that argument by saying he's never been in tip-top shape, but he plays 40 minutes a night every year. He carries you to the NBA Finals last year. He is 25 years old, and I would be worried if he was 30 and kind of still in this kind of shape and how that ages. But his game is not predicated on athleticism. It's not predicated on speed. It's not predicated on quickness and power. His game is predicated on intelligence, on angles, on feel, on instincts, and on using his size to slow everything down and get where he wants to go. And so I think that what we're going to see coming out of this is one of the game's great competitors. We saw it in the Western Conference Finals, has heard now for a week that he was traded from the team that he did not want to be traded from, that he wanted to stay with. And he was traded because he's fat and because they didn't trust him. And if there's ever going to be motivation for him to maybe change some of his habits and get in better shape, this is it. But even if he didn't, he's still a top 3 player in the league and one of the greatest offensive players that has literally ever played the game. And so I just think it's an enormous risk. I think it's a bad read on the situation. And like I said, I mean, to make this decision is one thing. To do it and then get the return that you got for it is unforgivable.
Good stuff. Glad I asked. Let's get to how do you want to wrap up the show? Do you have a Twitter question? Do you have a final topic you want to hit, either about the league?
We do have Twitter questions.
Let's do that.
And let's see. Yeah, let me find it here. Because this is important. We reported yesterday after the trade deadline that the Timberwolves explored trading for Kevin Durant. The Magic School Bus asks, what do you think the Wolves offered to get Kevin Durant? And so my colleague Sam Amick and I had gotten wind kind of yesterday during the day that they were at least looking and kicking the tires on a possibility. Kevin Durant was, the Suns were talking about moving him possibly to Golden State. Durant didn't want to go there. And so that sort of opened the door for an exploration of this possible union. And everyone knows that Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant are great admirers of each other. They really respect each other. They were really tight at the Paris Olympics, and the thought of pairing them together is an intoxicating one. And so I can tell everyone that I think that it has been made known, from sources on all sides of this, that Kevin Durant was open to coming to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that's a huge number one thing. Like, okay, Durant was open to the idea of coming to the Timberwolves if they could execute some kind of trade. Where it really got hung up, from what I understand, is that there were just too many hoops to jump through for this team because they're in the second apron. They cannot aggregate players with one team. So they can't say, hey, here's Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, and Rob Dillingham. We want Kevin Durant. That's against the rules in the collective bargaining agreement if you're above the second apron. So what they would have had to do is execute a series of moves that essentially eradicated most of their depth. Now, I don't think that they were close. Let me make this clear. Like, they were not close to, pulling the trigger on a Durant deal, because I think they looked at it and they said, we would have to probably lose DiVincenzo, Alexander Walker, Naz Reid, maybe Jaden McDaniels, maybe Rob Dillingham. Like, just a ton of moves would have had to have been done so that they could pull this trade off and get Durant. And so ultimately, in the end, after looking at scenarios and trying to comb through things, they just couldn't see an avenue, especially, at kind of last minute, to really pull off this deal right now. What I do think is important, though, is that A, they started to think about it at least a little bit. B, Kevin Durant is open to the idea of coming to Minnesota. But C, I really think that this lays the groundwork for possibly revisiting these talks this summer. After Durant's name was put in to the trade market rumor mill, everyone in the league is going to be watching how the Suns perform going forward here down the stretch. They have struggled all season long. It hasn't really worked. And we wonder, how is KD going to respond to being shopped around? And if it goes poorly and he can kind of agitate his way out in the summertime, I think the Timberwolves are absolutely a possibility again to revisit these talks, to open them up and see if they can get a deal done this summer.
Would you think acquiring Kevin Durant would be a good thing in general? Listen, I might sound like a silly question. He's a great player. He's a Hall of Famer. He's an incredible player, but he also, tends to bring a certain amount of drama with him. Would he be a good addition?
So I've been thinking a lot about this in the last 24 hours. Really, I'd thought about this before too, just knowing Durant and Edwards' relationship and how the NBA works. Ultimately, where I've landed, Jim, is that I think that it would have been worth the shot. Because what we have seen from this team so far, even though I am a little more bullish on this team than a lot of people are, and I think that there's still a scenario where it comes together, they play well, they get the right matchups in the playoffs, and they do some damage. I don't think, as currently constructed, that this roster is a championship team. I think that with Kevin Durant, you can at least open the argument that you are in the championship conversation. Now, they would have to do other moves. They would have to replenish their roster a bit and surround Ant and KD and Rudy, and whether it's Jaden, whether it was Naz who stays, that kind of group, they would have to do some things, and some gymnastics to make it happen. But, he's still a great, great player. And when you think of all of the clutch problems this team has had this year, they're 14-18 in clutch games. They lose all of the time late because of bad offense. Well, KD is one of the best clutch players of all time, and he can get his shot whenever he wants it, and he knows exactly what to do in those moments. And so it would just, address a huge problem. You would worry a little bit about his health and his age for sure, but he could come here and be Robin to Ant's Batman, and I think he would be happy to do that. I think this is a great market for him to be in, where he can just kind of focus on basketball and not be, kind of distracted by anything else, not distracted, but like the part of this, media firestorm kind of a thing. And so, I think it would be worth trying, because there's a certain ceiling on this team right now. And maybe that ceiling would still exist with Kevin Durant, but I think there's at least a chance that you could be a finals team with KD on the team. And so that's why I would do it.
Great stuff. I think we'll continue this conversation soon. Again, the ownership news should come down in the next few days. And when it does, we'll get another show out dealing with all the ownership stuff we wanted to hit on basketball today. Great stuff from Jon. Also check out our Viking Updates show. Remember, we have Russo, Jeff Diamond, Dawn Mitchell, Randy Shaver, Mike Grimm, John Millay, Jon Krawczynski, Roy Smalley, and LaBelle Neal on baseball, the Bar Down Beauties, outdoor content. Check it all out. When you find a show you like, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. We do appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week.